What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a full-on budget profile for Swordsoul. Now not a lot has actually changed, but thanks to the Rarity Collection set, this whole deck can now be built on a very tidy budget and still compete at the highest levels because very few people are expecting it. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. With that out of the way, we're going to dive headfirst into the profile and show you exactly what we've got. So pretty standard on all of this is you start off with your maxing out on your long ones and your Moyis. Moyis is your most expensive card to try and get hold of. So if you can't get hold of Moyis as early or as cheaply as you want to, then the best one you need to go for is Ecclesia and try to get at least one Moyi. With one Moyi, you technically have 4 copies of it in your deck with Ecclesia. Obviously, if you get directly to Moyi, you're less vulnerable to something like an Ash Blossom off of the back of Ecclesia. But that's where I would start. At the base minimum, get at least one Moyi and then work your way up. But again, I think it's something like £7 for an ultra rare Moyi, so relatively cheap and easy. And the last of the Swordsoul monsters is 2 Swordsoul of Tyre. Just squeeze it so it fits on the frame. There we go. So that is the full family there. You don't need to play free tie unless you play a different kind of strategy or style of the deck. And that's when you're probably going to end up using more Foolish Burials, more way to get worms to the graveyard, everything else like that. Moving on to the Tenyis, of course, you are going with triple Ashuna, double Vishuddha, double Adhara, and I like to play the one Shafana. Now again, this is all subjective to change, adaptation and personal preference. You can very easily, like the only one in my opinion that is definitely a free of is the Ashuna. Then for your Vishuddha, Adhara and your Shafanas, it's entirely up to you. You can choose not to play Shafana, you can play free and free if you want to. I just quite like this ratio, it works for me. Like I've got technically a quarter of my deck, or nearly a quarter of my deck is Tenyi access. So that's kind of how I want it to be. Onto the spells, of course, you've got your Searcher of triple Emergence, then you've got your Draw Power of double Pot of Desires, followed up by double Heavenly Cycle and double Vessel. Now again, this is subject to personal preference. You can adapt it and change it as you see fit. You can play a 2 and a 1 of either of them. You can play a 1 and a 1 if you want to. I just quite like the idea, especially in a format where if targeting becomes a huge factor, there is nothing better than your opponent activating a targeting effect and you chaining something like Heavy Dragon Cycle, because they waste an effect and you get advantage off the back of it as well. I still like to play the 1 Summit and of course the 1 Blackout. If you're not a fan of Summit, you can very easily just play 2 Blackouts if you want to. You can add in more hand traps if you want to adapt anything here as well. Then for the hand trap lineup, again, triple Ash Blossom, double Veiler, triple Imperm. Again, you can make them more hand trap reliant if you want to, more board breakers, entirely up to you. It is purely because of the rarity set that these are all incredibly cheap. It's something like £2 for an Ash Blossom now, so you get a playset for a £5. It's like £1 for a Super Veiler, and about £2, probably like a £5 for a playset of Imperms. It's absolutely insane how cheap these cards are. Definitely worth picking up. And then the last 2 cards I've got is 2 Trill Tactics Talents. Again, personal preference and accessibility. But the fact that these are £4 a copy now is absolutely insane. They're cards that you must have, even if they just sit in a very tiny binder that is like your side deck binder or your staple binder. They're cards that you must have. And this rarity set has just made it so much more accessible to everyone out there. It's a no-brainer to make sure you've got sets of at least everything. So that's it for the main deck. I'm going to show you the extra deck now. So for the extra deck, for the level 10 Synchros, we've got the Chenying, followed by the Quinlong, and of course, Baron de Fleur. So Baron is now relatively budget, like you're not paying any more than £10 at max for a super rare version of Baron, maybe even a little bit less. Like I've seen some supers go for like £5 to £7. It's absolutely crazy how this once £80 to £90 card is now just incredibly cheap and budget friendly, and it's the one that you kind of need. Now I know most Swordsoul players choose to go into Quinlong first to get double draw, which is absolutely fine. However, there are times where if Nibiru is prominent or preeminent at your local environment, that you kind of want to go to Baron to protect first more than anything. So definitely this type of lineup for the level 10s. Alternatively, for a level 10, you can play the Ice Jade Gemir. You don't have to play this. This can very easily be a 3rd Monk. It can be the Dragite for the level 8 Water Negation, or it can also become a Psychic End Punisher if you wanted to try and adapt down that route. But I quite like this. It's quite a nice card that not a lot of people know what it does, and it does cause a lot of issues. Being able to banish, revive itself, everything, you name it. Then, of course, we've got the one at Chao Feng, double Swordsoul Grandmaster Yugioh. This is like your go-to one more times than not. And then, of course, you've got your Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, Cyframe Lord Omega, you don't have to play this. Again, this can very easily be Dragite. It's entirely up to you. I quite like the idea of sometimes making Omega, rip a card from my opponent's hand, but also recycle my Tenyis back into the graveyard. Not that Adhara is not already going to do that for me, but if I'm able to go, okay, cool, Omega, put an Ashuna back into my graveyard, I've already got a non-effect on the board, so I'm set to go the next turn, and then Omega rip one from my opponent's hand. It's just a nice way of resource management, but this can become any level 8 synchro you want. Double Baxia and the 1 Yazi. And then for the links, 1, 2 Monk and 1 Shaman of the Tenyi. Again, entirely up to you. I feel that this ratio is perfectly fine for me. Some people do play higher level monsters as well. Some people do play, they used to play the level 3 or the link 3 Tenyi, which is very interesting. Honestly, I don't see the need for it. I think this works out quite nicely for me. Like I said, it's all down to personal preference. All you need to know is at the end of the day, you can build this deck incredibly cheaply. Now, it's not going to be as easy as a deck such as Traptrix, Red Dragon Archfiend or Darkworld, just because they all came in a structure deck. Sadly, this one didn't. You will need to do some hunting around to find the pieces you need, and you're going to want to find the lower rarity pieces just so you don't break the bank. But once you've already got that, or once you've already got the kind of like the core cards, you're set ready to go. The side deck can kind of consist of stuff like Rivalry of the Warlords, because you're only playing Worms more times than not. You can also play in your standard Cosmic Cyclones, Raigekis, Dark Holes, you name it. Like, you've got so much accessibility. You can put in Forbidden Droplets, Dark Rulers No Mores. It's so, so good and very powerful. And I really do enjoy it. So I thought I'd bring you a very short, sweet, simple update to the build. There are some basic combos online as well for you guys to check out. But for now, that is pretty much it for the profile. Any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.